we're going to move on to level 3 now, the fun stuff. So go ahead and look at level 3, the reading section of it. The definition is on the board and also on your handouts. And your examples are below it. You actually, I believe, have 2 slides of examples for level 3. So one of your classmates I'm saying classmates. I'm also, by the way, let me just tell you all that a lot of what I'm doing, and I'll talk through a few of the things that I've done so far, I am modeling some classroom things, like the 3, gives your students a chance to acknowledge for you to do some silent acknowledgments, gets them used to it so that it's not always the, yay, you have an answer, you don't. So the just signals and things of that nature is really helpful so that no one is comparing to each other. It kind of levels the field at times. And it also, again, gets your students just used to a head nod being a positive, so that you're not having to give out candy all the time and brownies and donuts. But one of your classmates acknowledged that we need to kind of talk through complex and abstract, because those words sometimes are maybe a little too broad, and we need to have some boundaries around it. And so I'm an example person, I think, and so that's the best way for me to dwell into this. So what I would say is looking at the examples for number 3. When you look at the first one, compare consumer actions and analyze how these actions impact the environment. Someone driving a car and the polar bears are very the way that these two are connected, this middle piece in here is very complex. There's a lot of avenues that we can go with that, right? It is also very abstract because it doesn't have that real life piece for our students per se. Most of us even haven't seen live polar bears and in their natural habitats. That brings in the abstract as well. But what they have to do with that information is really what's abstract. Connecting those two things and analyzing how this consumer affects this environment. That's where the abstract and complex kind of come in for me. And that's one of them that really does bring it home for me, because it's not just saying people driving cars affects the environment, right? It's comparing their actions. So a person driving a car versus a person taking the bus versus a person biking, that's where that also comes in. Did you? Oh, okay. Yes.
That would be a perfect extended response question.
You didn't know that I wrote extended response questions? Oh, I didn't say that in my introduction? Yes. And of course, and again, we can get into some of, why it's important for us to do this work, which is, connected, of course, to the GED. But when you think about it, the circles that you walk in, the circles that our students are going to, are a part of and going to be a part of in the workplace, and we're, Academy of Hope, for instance, we have a Bridge to College program, so we have students going to college. These are the types of conversations that we have. We don't realize what we're doing when we're having those conversations. And so having a discussion group around these items, not just giving a student a packet that says these things are bad or these things are happening that affect the environment, but having them discuss that, having them to come up with a plan for their lives on how they can lessen their impact on the environment. Plan. That's a big level 3 piece.
I think one of the challenges with level 3 is, at least the way our program is structured, so I'm in the evening, I work with the 16 instructors, and we have an hour and a half for instruction. And you might not have, and So a subject is taught once a week, so you have that 7-day period in between. So you tend not to do lessons that fall over consecutive class periods, so you have finite hour and a half to do this. So to get to kind of that level of thinking is challenging, and you really have to figure out shortcuts, you know? So
Yeah.
like, for instance, like analyzing and evaluating the effectiveness of literary elements, like characterization. You know, you might use 2 storybooks that you can get through in 10 minutes, and you have 2 comparison pieces. And then you could go through these steps of comparing plot and character, and then you might perhaps go on to a lengthier assignment. But I think that's one of the real challenges I see in doing this level, is how you do it in such a short period of time and get to that level of depth. And you have to come up with these shortcuts. So the science teacher came up with something on carbon footprint. So she had them design a diet, and then you could put it into the computer, and it would come up with your carbon footprint. So you can see what dairy does to your carbon footprint, what animal consumption does. You know, it was just this incredible thing she had found that did the whole lesson you were just speaking of in a fairly short period of time. But you know, it's hard to do.
Yeah, and you know, we'll get to some classroom management and strategies and things of that nature that will help with some of that. But we all know those types of constraints. You know, our programs are not K through 12. We don't have the extended time. We don't have the consistent attendance, and you know, things of that nature. But I'm going to throw that premise into what the teachers are going to be doing, which talks a lot about timing, talks a lot around how to kind of help to bring people in using projects, for instance, and long-term term things that sometimes help with that attendance issue, sometimes helps with that seven-day turnaround. So I'll kind of throw that to them, but it's definitely a good, important piece to think through.